All right, so today we're going to be looking into immigration
Okay.
under the new Trump administration.
Right.
And we've got this Fox News article
Yeah.
that reports on some pretty aggressive ICE actions since Trump took office for his second term last week.
Okay.
And so the big question this brings up
Yeah.
is the administration right in saying that because someone entered the country illegally, they're automatically a criminal?
Well, the article certainly doesn't shy away from that perspective.
Okay.
It highlights the fact that ICE has already made over 3,500 arrests since Trump's inauguration just last week.
Yeah, that's a huge number.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they also lodged 554 detainers that same day.
Okay.
What exactly does that mean in this context?
Well, it's a mechanism that allows ICE to request that local law enforcement agencies hold someone for up to 48 hours beyond their scheduled release.
So, like, they're ready to go home, and then ICE can say, hold on.
Yeah, basically it gives ICE a window to take them into custody for potential immigration violations, even if they were initially arrested for something else entirely.
So someone could be cleared of a charge, ready to go home, and then suddenly find themselves facing deportation.
That's right.
That seems like it could be ripe for abuse.
It definitely raises concerns about due process and the potential for individuals to be held without clear legal justification.
Yeah.
There have been numerous legal challenges to the use of detainers, with some courts ruling that they violate constitutional rights.
It gets even more intense when you read White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt's statement. She flat out says, and I quote, all of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they're criminals as far as this administration goes.
Wow.
I mean, is that really a fair assessment?
It's certainly a strong statement and represents a pretty stark departure from the previous administration's approach. The previous administration focused its deportation efforts primarily on individuals convicted of serious crimes. This administration, however, is casting a much wider net, essentially saying that anyone who's violated immigration law, regardless of other circumstances, is now considered a criminal.
And she didn't back down from that position at all.
Really?
Even when a reporter specifically asked about those without criminal records.
Oh, wow.
Leavitt just reiterated that in the administration's eyes, breaking immigration law makes them criminals, period.
That kind of blanket statement is concerning for several reasons. Firstly, it oversimplifies a very complex issue. The reasons people immigrate illegally are varied and often involve dire circumstances. Reducing everyone to the label criminal ignores those nuances and can fuel prejudice and discrimination.
It also seems like it could create a real chilling effect within immigrant communities if people are afraid to report crimes or seek help because they fear being labeled a criminal and deported. It could make everyone less safe.
You're absolutely right. And on a broader scale, it raises questions about the social and ethical implications of equating immigration violations, which are civil offenses, with criminal behavior. It has the potential to fundamentally shift how we view immigrants and their place in our society.
Plus, think about the practical implications. The article mentions Tom Homan, the administration's border czar, predicting that deportations will ramp up in the coming weeks.
Wow.
Could we even handle that kind of mass deportation effort?
That's a good question.
From the logistical and resource standpoint.
That's a major question. Mass deportations are incredibly complex and expensive undertakings. They require vast resources, coordination between multiple agencies, and a thorough legal process to ensure due process rights are upheld. And historically large-scale deportation efforts have often had unintended and negative consequences, both socially and economically.
It sounds like this hardline stance could create a ripple effect throughout the entire country.
I think that's a really good point. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out in the coming weeks and months.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with this new administration and these new policies.
Absolutely, and how it impacts the lives of so many people.
It's going to be a very interesting time for immigration in the U.S.
For sure.
Well, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this story.
Me too.
And we'll be back next week to dig deeper into some of these other aspects of it.
Sounds good.
All right, talk to you then.
All right, bye.
It's almost like we're stepping back in time. You know, there are echoes of past periods in American history.
Right.
When we saw similar crackdowns on immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And those didn't exactly have happy endings.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
When we look back at those historical instances of mass deportations, we often see patterns of social and economic upheaval.
Yeah.
Families were torn apart,
Mm-hmm.
communities destabilized, and entire industries disrupted.
Wow.
The human cost was immense, and the long-term consequences were often unforeseen and devastating.
It makes you wonder what happens to those who have built lives here, who contribute to our economy and communities.
Exactly.
What about those seeking asylum,
Mm-hmm.
fleeing violence and persecution?
Yeah.
Do those stories get lost in this blanket labeling of criminal?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest dangers of this kind of oversimplification.
Yeah.
We risk creating a system where legitimate humanitarian concerns are overlooked.
Right.
And entire groups of people are demonized
Mm-hmm.
based solely on their immigration status.
Right.
It creates a climate of fear and distrust, not just for immigrants, but for everyone.
And practically speaking,
Yeah.
even if we set aside the ethical concerns for a moment,
Okay.
can our legal and judicial systems handle this influx of cases?
Well,
Deporting thousands of people requires a thorough legal process, right?
you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Due process is a fundamental right guaranteed by our Constitution.
Right.
And it applies to everyone within our borders,
Okay.
regardless of their immigration status.
So you can't just round people up and ship them out without due process.
Each case needs to be individually reviewed,
Right.
evidence presented,
Okay.
and a legal determination made. Rushing through deportations without proper legal procedures could lead to serious violations of individual rights and potentially wrongful deportations.
Leavitt's statements also got me thinking about the economic side of things.
Okay.
We know many industries in this country rely heavily on immigrant labor,
Right.
both documented and undocumented.
Yeah.
What happens to those industries?
That's a good question.
If we suddenly remove a significant portion of their workforce?
That's a critical consideration that often gets overlooked in these debates.
Yeah.
Industries like agriculture, construction, and hospitality rely heavily on immigrant labor, and large-scale deportations could lead to labor shortages, increased costs, and ultimately economic instability.
Wow.
It's not a simple equation.
Right.
And the potential economic fallout could be significant.
What about the impact on families and communities? We're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet.
Exactly.
These are real people with families, children, friends, and lives woven into the fabric of our communities.
Precisely. Mass deportations can tear families apart,
Right.
leaving children to grow up without parents and communities struggling to fill the void.
Yeah.
The social fabric of our nation is strengthened by the diversity and contributions of immigrants.
Right.
And when we disrupt that fabric,
Yeah.
the consequences can be far-reaching and long-lasting.
It feels like this approach could also create a real sense of division within society if we're constantly pitting us against them.
Yeah.
It erodes the sense of shared values
Right.
and common purpose that holds a nation together.
You've hit on a crucial point.
Yeah.
Immigration is a complex issue,
Right.
but it shouldn't be a divisive one.
Right.
When we dehumanize entire groups of people and label them as criminals simply for seeking a better life, it undermines our values as a nation and weakens our social cohesion.
So as we try to grasp the potential impact of this policy shift, where do we go from here? What does this mean for the future of immigration policy in the U.S.?
It's too early to say for sure.
Okay.
But this news story is a wake-up call.
Yeah.
It underscores the importance of staying informed, engaging in thoughtful dialogue, and demanding that our leaders consider the full spectrum of consequences before enacting sweeping policy changes.
We can't just accept these pronouncements at face value.
Right.
We need to dig deeper, understand the nuances, and consider the human impact of these policies.
Absolutely.
This isn't just about politics. It's about people's lives.
Exactly.
This whole situation seems to come down to how we define criminal.
Right.
Are we talking about someone who poses a threat to public safety? Or are we just labeling anyone who breaks any law as a criminal?
That's the core question here.
Yeah.
And it has profound implications for our legal system, our social fabric, and our values as a nation.
Yeah.
When we expand the definition of criminal to encompass a broad range of actions, we risk eroding the distinction between serious offenses and civil violations.
Right.
And we might unintentionally create a system where the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
And it seems like that's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah.
The administration is saying that entering the country illegally, even without any other criminal activity, is enough to brand someone a criminal.
Wow.
But isn't that oversimplifying a complex issue?
It certainly ignores the multifaceted nature of immigration.
Yeah.
And the various factors that lead people to make difficult choices. Many individuals who enter the country illegally are fleeing violence, poverty, or persecution in their home countries.
Right.
Others may be seeking economic opportunities or reunification with family members.
Yeah.
To simply label them all as criminals
Right.
without considering the context of their actions seems both inaccurate and unjust.
It also seems like this approach could backfire when it comes to public safety.
Yeah, how so?
Like if people are afraid to report crimes or cooperate with law enforcement because they fear being labeled a criminal and deported, it could make our communities less safe for everyone.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
When people live in fear of law enforcement, it creates a climate of distrust and discourages them from engaging with authorities, even when they are victims of crimes.
Right. Or have information that could help solve crimes.
Right.
This ultimately hinders law enforcement's ability to effectively protect and serve all members of the community.
So what does this deep dive into the administration's immigration stance really tell us? What should we, the listeners, be taking away from this?
I think this news story is a reminder that immigration is a complex issue with far-reaching consequences. It's not a black and white issue.
Right.
And it's crucial to consider the nuances and the human stories behind the headlines.
Yeah.
When we reduce individuals to simple labels like criminal, we lose sight of their humanity and the complex factors that drive their actions.
Right.
This kind of oversimplification can lead to policies that are not only unjust, but also ineffective and even counterproductive to our goals as a society.
It definitely highlights the importance of staying informed.
Absolutely.
Critically evaluating information.
And engaging in thoughtful dialogue about these complex issues.
Exactly. And as you continue to explore this topic, I encourage you to ask yourself, what are the long-term societal implications of equating the act of illegal immigration with inherent criminality?
That's a good question.
How does this framing impact our understanding of justice, fairness, and human rights?
Wow.
These are questions worth pondering as we navigate this evolving landscape and strive to create a more just and equitable society for all.
Lots to think about, for sure.
For sure.
And a great reminder that even when it comes to heated and often polarizing topics, like immigration, there's always more to learn, more to understand, and more to discuss.
Well said.
All right, that's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
But we'll be back next week to tackle another complex issue.
Sounds good.
Until then, stay curious and keep asking those tough questions.
Will do.